Good afternoon, everyone. I'm pleased to be joined today by Mr. Aaron McKittrick, one of the project leaders on Bermuda's zero emission vehicle policy. Many countries have adopted measures to accelerate the transition to zero emission vehicles, or ZEVs. At the same time, global automakers are investing in ZEV technology while phasing out investment in gasoline and diesel vehicles. Bermuda is uniquely positioned to benefit from a transition to ZEVs due to the vehicle's low annual mileage requirements and increasing renewable energy generation on the electrical grid. ZEVs, or zero emission vehicles, is a term used to refer to several vehicle types. EVs, fully electrical vehicles with no internal combustion engine, ICE, powered exclusively from electricity stored in a battery. PHEVs, plug-in hybrid vehicles with a small electrical only range combined with an ICE. FCEVs, full cell electrical vehicles powered by hydrogen, a zero emission fuel source. ZEVs, specifically fully electrical vehicles, FVs or EVs, offer multiple benefits, including lower fuel maintenance costs, increased efficiency, and improved local air quality. Bermuda is no stranger to the FEV transition with fully electrical rental cars, fleets, and the recently introduced electrical public buses. Being less than 25 miles long and 2 miles at its wider this point, the island is a prime candidate for ZEVs, without the need for long-range vehicles or frequent charging. Eliminating emissions from transport will not only reduce Bermuda's contribution to climate change, but improve local air quality and reduce dependence on foreign oil. Bermuda is at a crossroads. We must have open and robust discussions regarding policy measures to ensure we are not left with outdated technology. In order to spur feedback, today we will publish the ZEV policy public consultation document for the public to review and provide feedback on the Citizens Forum at forum.com.bm. This document is intended to solicit feedback from the public and stakeholder groups. The next step in the process is to develop concrete, thorough, and exhaustive policy recommendations based on the feedback received. At this time, there are few details of the policy and internally omitted from the public consultant document. They are the date by which the policy would go into effect, the vehicle technologies to be intended in the ZEV definition, timeline for phasing out sales for specific vehicle types and use cases. We have not included this information in the consultation document with the intention of first soliciting feedback from the public. After the consultation process concludes, the Ministry of Transport will review each response and provide a detailed policy recommendation and strategy to the public. Government is aware there are some key factors that will contribute to final decisions, and these items will be part of the overall discussion in key stakeholder meetings. Some key considerations for ZEV policy are determining which types of vehicles will qualify as a ZEV in the Bermuda content, and the timeline annual ZEV sales targeted by vehicle type. Increased electricity demand due to EVs. Deployment of comprehensive charging infrastructure networks for EVs. Higher purchase price and limited vehicle model availability of ZEVs on the island. Developing local ZEV maintenance and servicing capacity. Recycling and disposal of EV batteries and other components. I'm encouraging the public to take time to review the document and provide feedback. The deadline for public feedback submission is March 23rd, 2023. The Ministry of Transport will host question and answer webinar on February the 15th, and details will be posted online. Thank you. I will take any questions.
All right, we'll take Gareth from the Royal Gazette.
Minister, good afternoon. Gareth Finnegan from the Royal Gazette. You mentioned that the government's going to develop policies based on public feedback. To what extent is that true? How much weight does public feedback have? What if you don't get much public feedback? Why is it really true to say that? You mentioned that there are other factors to consider. Do those factors carry far more weight?
We will get, I believe, a lot of feedback because people are very much interested in this topic. And we will do all what we can to make sure that feedback has come from the public, and we will listen to the public.
So would it be true to say that you're actually being, rather than leading this initiative, you're basically, taking guidance from others?
No, we're leading the initiative. We have set a policy for 2035, but we also want to hear from the public on their views.
But the policies aren't going to be based on that feedback.
I'm sure most of the public feedback will be based on them. Yeah.
Okay. I'd like to now turn to questions about Airlift to Bermuda, if I may.
Okay. No more questions on ZEVs.
So these are questions that I sent you 2 days ago, Minister. So Tuesday morning.
Okay.
So you have. Well, I hope you've seen them.
I was in cabinet, so I have not.
Okay. Well, I hope you have seen them. But it's referring to, my first question refers to a statement that you issued on Sunday concerning a meeting that you had with various tourism stakeholders. And in a subsequent press release, you said that you projected that there would be 300,000 air visitors to Bermuda this year, which is way down on pre-pandemic levels of 420, 430,000. Why is Bermuda struggling to get back to pre-pandemic levels of airlift, particularly when other destinations to our south are recording record numbers of visitors? Why are we still lagging behind?
Yeah, first of all, those years we did have a larger supply of rooms. That's one of the reasons why we're down from probably 425 to, what you said, to 300.
Yeah.
The 300 came from Skyport. That's their estimate as of now, where we are as far as our airlifts. Hopefully we can improve that even further, but we are, as far as you know, that we have the numbers of beds, and they are as far as limited right now.
So it's primarily down to bed numbers, would you say?
I would say that has an impact on it, yeah.
Yeah. What are the other impacts or factors?
Well, from what I understand from the airlines, as we come out of this period as far as pandemic, they're having challenges themselves regarding pilots, getting service on their own aircrafts. And when they look at certain, that's what they've told us. That's one of the reasons why.
But they're not having problems getting flying aircraft to other destinations. That's the point there. Why is it just Bermuda? I mean, it does seem, do you think it's fair to say that the Burt administration is basically, it seems to be continually making excuses to make up for its own shortcomings?
No, we're not making excuses at all. No? We're not making any excuses.
You're saying that the airlines have a lack of pilots?
There was a time, and that's the truth that they've told us. They said one of the reasons why is because of lack of pilots, and of course lack of aircraft, and they're spreading them out. Now, any company that's in business, we have roughly, I think, 2,500 beds right now. In the good old days when I was much younger than I'm 35 right now, is that it used to be roughly 10,000, I think, beds at that time. And so there is a limited amount of beds. And when they looked at that numbers, I'm sure, and the load factors we've had over the last couple of years, the load factors have not been as good as they probably like. And so they look at numbers themselves.
Okay. Any idea when the Southampton Princess is going to open?
I am not at place right now to disclose that, but as you have know, the government is working hard to start to make sure that we try to get it open by 2024. I think that's the target that we've already been set.
Okay. Going back to Airlift. So we had the news yesterday that AA was cancelling services out of Miami, and you stated that they feel that the Bermuda demand levels anticipated this summer cannot be accommodated on the Charlotte, New York, and Philadelphia services. So you're basically saying that there isn't enough demand from people in Florida to come to Bermuda. Isn't that true?
It's interesting if you look at the data that we have in our possession. American, and most people knows that most of the Americans to Miami is Bermudians. A large proportion of that, very large portion of that. And we were saddened, to be honest with you, on to receive an email on Saturday morning announcing it. We were shocked, totally shocked at that announcement that they will be not flying. I have now reached out to, not now, but on Saturday, right after receiving the email, I reached out to them, asking them for us to meet. And then we also have reached out to them as of yesterday, following up on my email. And I received an email yesterday afternoon from one of their people who's on holiday. I said, enjoy your holiday, we'll talk next week. So
Okay.
I hope to hear from them very soon.
Right. You described the news as disappointing.
Mhm.
Susan Jackson, the Shadow Minister for Transport, she said that it highlights the fact that Airlift Bermuda is in crisis. Do you think that's a fair description?
Crisis?
Yeah.
Challenging? Yes. No crisis.
It's not in crisis. Why do you believe that?
We have airlines right now coming out of Newark. We have an increased aircraft coming out of LaGuardia. We have WestJet will be very soon announcing further the aircraft coming back out of Canada. I spoke to Air Canada themselves 2 days ago, I think it was. They're excited to come back and move on to Canada. So the big challenge is only Miami road. We got to North Carolina, which we never have. And as I said, 10 years ago, we never even had a Miami flight, but we had 10,000 residents.
Okay. You've also mentioned in the past that you were looking into Bermuda Air as a potential carrier. Is that really feasible? Is it going to have an impact? It's a very small setup, isn't it?
Yes, it is. They're talking to us, and the discussion is continuing. And if we also working with them and BTA, we will see whether whether it's worth it, and then we go with it. But they are talking to us.
Okay. And then also, I understand there's talk about the government looking at getting in talks with budget airlines.
Budget. Well,
can you give some more details on that?
I know nothing about budget airlines. You said about budget airlines or airline called Budget? I wasn't sure what you're saying.
No, budget airlines.
We're having discussions with many airlines.
Including budget airlines? Could you
Tell
give me some more details?
Budget airlines.
Well, I don't know. That's what I'm asking
Yeah,
you
there
for.
are airlines that probably prices are cheaper. We're talking about many airlines.
Sure. Have you been in talks with any of them?
Depending on how you define budget airlines.
Well, airlines that have far lower prices and
Can you
aren't
name
as
one?
fancy, should
Can
we
you
say?
name one so I can ask about them?
Well, no, I'm asking you to name them. Which
No,
ones have you
I
been
said
talked
we're
with?
talking to many airlines.
Okay, could you tell me, name some of those airlines?
I don't know. I don't define them as budget airlines. They're airlines.
All right, Gareth, we're gonna.
I've still got a few questions, Tina.
That's all right. We have other reporters here.
Wow.
Gary Skelton, please, from Bermuda Broadcasting.
Can I not
Yeah, good.
ask some more
We'll come
questions?
back to you, Gary.
Okay, thank you, Tina.
I'd like to actually stay on the same topic that my colleague from
Is it
the Royal
EVs?
Gazette was on. I will come back to EVs, but since we're on that topic, let's see. And I apologize if this was asked because I missed a moment there. But since the AA, since American Airlines dropped the Miami service to Bermuda, did you offer a minimum revenue guarantee to try and retain that flight?
We don't discuss on who we offer minimum revenue guarantees to.
But isn't that part of the process of trying to keep a flight rather than lose it?
We don't discuss who we talked about airlines, MRGs.
Okay. You were projecting 300,000 flights before this news, or 300,000 visitors before this news. I apologize. Do you have an estimate on how many visits have been lost?
No, I do not. Like I said, we got that information from Skyport last week. They projected They get the projection to us, and that's where they are at that point of time. Let me emphasize that. And that's 300,000 Bermudians and tourists combination.
Okay.
300,000 is the number of passengers on a flight that's traveling, not just tourists. So let me emphasize that.
So who's crunching those numbers? Because that's a
Yeah,
lot of flights lost, a lot of potential tourists lost. Who's crunching those numbers?
Yeah, when you
right
say
now?
a lot of airlines lost, what do you mean by that?
Sorry, a lot of passengers lost, a lot of visitors potentially lost. Who's crunching those numbers
That's
right now?
Skyport.
Okay. You pointed at a lack of beds being part of the reason for losing such flights. Then is it fair to say that the PLP's failure to get Southampton Princess, Fairmont Southampton back up and running has added to this problem?
No, it wouldn't.
No.
The PLP has set a target that they'd like to for the actual hotel to be back on board, and we hope to have it back on board that time.
But you haven't got it back on board.
But since that time, I'm not sure if you're aware, we've also had a significant increase in vacation rentals too.
Okay. Touching back on electric vehicles, there's very little detail of policy here in what you've said, and you said there isn't even a timeline for phasing out in the policy document or for public consultation. Is there no timeline or even proposed timeline?
So the Bermuda and the rest of the world have said 2035 is when we want the last opportunity for yourself to be, whatever month it may be, would be for actual ordering combustible engines in the island. UK has said it, Barbados have said, in fact, Barbados is to 2030, but we've said 2035. And so as we head towards that time and we have our consultation, we will look at other vehicles that we may be able to phase out early.
Okay, and phasing out the sales of those vehicles, but does this policy document touch on any proposals in that sense?
No, we want to hear from the public.
You want to hear from the public first?
Yeah.
So do you even have any?
I have some. I have
well,
some.
we'd like to understand what government is thinking, and then the public can.
Well, we're consulting with the public and want to hear them. The committee will meet and discuss further. Okay. Yeah, it's very important that we hear from the public. Let me say 2035, there'll be still a lot of combustible cars. If any of you have those type of combustible cars right now, and you know Bermudans going to have a car for 20, 30 years, some of them 40 years, some of them are classic cars. So 2035 is not like there's going to be no combustible engine cars on the road. But for ordering by the auto dealers, no.
It sounds a bit like, and we do have the policy project leader here, Aaron McKittrick, and it'd be good to have a little bit of an idea what government's planning. Then the public can actually react to that, rather than it's sounding open-ended at the moment.
I take your point. Aaron, you want to say a few things?
Good afternoon.
Thank you, Mr.
So I think, as the minister stated, and he gave you some highlights of what's contained in the consultation document. So I would refer people back to the consultation document. It contains a lot of information as you're looking for and you're asking about. And once you read through that information, I think it will give a better idea. It gives a better guide as to where the government is going and what the obstacles to potential transitioning to ZEVs by a certain date. So I think, as the minister is saying, you don't want to put a fine line and a fine goal on anything until we've had the opportunity, the government has had the opportunity to actually consult with. And by the public, it's not just the general public. It's not just residents. It's stakeholders, meaning the car dealers, the mechanics, those shops and so forth, anyone, like retailers, all of those. So it goes right across the board, and fleet owners as well.
Now,
Go ahead.
You have spoken, one thing that was mentioned about infrastructure changes, potential needing more electrical charging stations around the island. Have you any kind of prospective costs in that regard? Have you done that kind of work of looking at this is what it would cost to put these things in place?
I think we have current day costs, of course, but it just depends on when that infrastructure would be purchased, of course. So the prices, even for a vehicle, might change year on year. So it's hard to put a specific cost of anything. But what I would say is, considering Bermuda's size and the range of vehicles, as far as charging infrastructure, we don't see a large requirement for investment in charging infrastructure because the ranges are increasing as the technology improves. And again, what we're seeing already, and we can see in test cases with those who are already owners of vehicles, is they can go on a single charge for a week and more. So unlike the United States, unlike the UK, where they're driving longer distances, they need quicker and more rapid charging infrastructure to facilitate their needs. We don't see that as being a requirement in Bermuda. But again, this is where we're open to hearing from those who have more experience, more knowledge, and can give us their feedback on that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. McKittrick.
Thank you.
I have another question.
Just at one point.
Why did
Can I just at one point?
government purchase new vehicles for the Premier and the Governor that were not electric, if that's part of the long-term goal?
Why did? Oh, say that question again.
Why did government purchase new vehicles for the Premier and the Governor that were not electric, when that's part of the long-term goal? Wouldn't that have been a good time to put the pedal to the metal?
Well, anyone can buy any kind of car they want right now. As we're having discussions with auto dealers as regularly right now. The question is, what type of quantities is out there? There are certain auto dealers having challenges with their manufacturing company as far as sizes. And so discussions goes on with them. And then the decision will be made.
Gary, any further questions? Gary, any further questions?
I-
That's your last question?
I will. I do have one further question.
Well, one
if I may.
question. Come on, let's go. Gary.
Okay, thank you. I would like to add, returning to these issues of flights and visitors. Right now, we're looking at things that the previous government did that are benefiting, such as the St. Regis, such as whatever tourism came about because of the highlight of Bermuda through things like the America's Cup. What is this government going to be able to point to say this is how we brought about more footfall, more tourists, more visitors to Bermuda?
Well, there are many things the government working on. I think most questions should probably come from the Minister of Tourism. But as I said, the government's goal is that 2024, we'll get Southampton Princess back in. That's the goal. So that's something that we can say be done. We can also say about Bermuda Hotel. That's something the government can also say is done. You're well aware there's discussions about a certain development, and it's being discussed up there in Warwick. If that takes place, that's something the government can also point at. There are many things being pointed that the government has done.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Forster Skelton. Gareth, 2 more questions. Let's go.
Thanks, Gina. Thank you, Minister. You talked about there being many Bermudians on that projected list of 300,000 visitors. What is the actual proportion?
I really don't know, Gareth, but I had looked at some data. I looked back then, looked at some data from American, which had been produced by, I believe, by BTA. And out of there was a significant amount of Bermudians that fly down there. And I tell you, my biggest concern, all right, and BTA and I are discussing it, and also the airport authority, is that Bermudians can get to Miami to Disney World whatever way they can get there. Now, because Miami has an impact, coming through North Carolina, there's a challenge. So we want to have a discussion with American Airlines, is putting a bigger aircraft online. And that hopefully will help us out with the situation.
Okay. Is the government still giving airlines subsidies to fly certain routes, and which routes are being subsidized? And if subsidies have been withdrawn, why is that?
I believe you said that the government's giving subsidy, and you're asking, do we, or I'm not sure.
Well, I'm asking, do you? And if so, again, more details.
Uh,
Which routes?
The airport authority is responsible for these type of minimum revenue guarantees and stuff. The government does not go around and revealing if any airlines have minimum revenue guarantees.
All right, that concludes our questions.
Thank you, Minister.
Members
You're
of the
welcome.
media, I remind you, you are more than willing to send your questions in. We will do our utmost best to get you the answers to all your questions. Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Mr. Aaron McKittrick. That concludes the press conference.
Thank you.